This is QTV Nightly News. We are also on Q Radio 103.3 FM. I'm Umudu Gajaga and thank you for joining us. First, here are the headlines. The National Assembly of the Gambia, under the leadership of its Speaker, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, on Thursday, held a media briefing on the second ordinary session of the 2026 legislative year at the National Assembly grounds in Banjul. The briefing outlined key legislative priorities, motions, and policy matters expected to shape the Assembly's debate in the months ahead. The Mayor of Banjul, Rohey Lowe, was celebrated on Wednesday with a vibrant triple launch of a book, a magazine, and a documentary in recognition of her leadership, achievements, and service to the city. Speaking as a panel member during a summit in the Republic of Korea, Gambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sering Modunjai, has called for stronger partnership between Africa and the Republic of Korea to drive sustainable development, industrialization, and energy transformation across the continent. In international news, a permanent national memorial honoring the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis has been officially inaugurated in Paris by French President Emmanuel Macron and Rwandan President Paul Kagame. And in sports news, Rwanda made basketball history over the past weekend. RSSB Tigers BBC defeated Angola's Petro de Luanda 90-88 to win the Basketball Africa League title, becoming the first Rwandan team ever to lift Africa's premier club basketball trophy. Those were the headlines, now the news in detail. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is QTV News. The National Assembly of the Gambia, under the leadership of its Speaker, Fabakary Tombong Jatta, on Thursday, held a media briefing on the second ordinary session of the 2026 legislative year at the National Assembly grounds in Banjul. The briefing outlined key legislative priorities, motions, and policy matters expected to shape the Assembly's debate in the months ahead. Usman Jatta reports.
The briefing is aimed at enhancing public awareness, promoting transparency, and providing timely information on the legislative agenda for the National Assembly's second ordinary session. Speaker Fabakary Tombong Jatta outlined the program of activities and key guidelines expected to steer the session.
The legislative agenda before the Assembly remains both extensive and consequential. Members will consider several important bills aimed at modernizing our legal framework, strengthening public administration, enhancing national security, and supporting economic growth. Among the bills scheduled for consideration are the Gambia Immigration Bill 2026, the Urban Market Bill 2026, the Cybercrime Bill 2026, the Prerogative of Mercy Bill 2026, and the Intellectual Property Bill 2026.
Speaker Jatta says the proposed legislative instrument seeks to address key policy issues and reinforce the Assembly's commitment to ensuring that national laws remain relevant and responsive to emerging governance challenges and present-day realities.
A particularly significant milestone during this session will occur on Tuesday, 30th June 2026, when His Excellency the Vice President is expected to deliver the government's response to the report of the Special Select Committee that investigated the sale and disposal of assets identified by the Ghana Commission of Inquiry. This will represent an important moment in the Assembly's oversight journey and reaffirm Parliament's constitutional responsibility as the guardian of public accountability and the protector of the public interest.
The Assembly will also deliberate on a number of important motions relating to governance, institutional accountability, and human rights, all geared towards strengthening democratic oversight and national development.
Among these will be the motion for the ratification of the African Union Convention on Ending Violence, a landmark continental instrument aimed at strengthening protections for women and girls across Africa. Additionally, the Assembly will consider a motion by the Honorable Majority Leader for the establishment of a standing committee on governance assurances, a permanent mechanism designed to monitor, track, and evaluate commitments made by the executive before Parliament. This proposed reform presents a major step towards institutionalizing follow-up mechanisms and strengthening executive accountability. The forthcoming session is ambitious, substantive, and reflective of a Parliament that continues to evolve in response to the aspirations of the Gambian people. The breadth of issues before the Assembly demonstrates our commitment to promoting good governance, strengthening accountability, modernizing our legal framework, and ensuring that public institutions remain responsive to the needs of our citizens.
Khalifa Emembai, clerk of the National Assembly, outlined his department's efforts to ensure the smooth conduct of the session by engaging ministries and agencies.
In line with our broader institutional reform agenda, we have also strengthened internal tracking system to monitor the progression of bills, motions, committee reports, and ministerial responses throughout this session. These measures are intended to improve efficiency, strengthen institutional memory, as well as support evidence-based parliamentary administration. The media, your very own self, remains an indispensable partner in the functioning of any democratic institution, more so Parliament. The Office of the Clerk, therefore, will continue to facilitate timely access to official documents, committee reports, order papers, procedural information throughout the session, as we believe that an informed public is fundamental to a vibrant parliamentary democracy.
Meanwhile, both the majority and minority leaders reassured the public of the Parliament's commitment to addressing issues affecting Gambians and fulfilling their responsibilities as elected representatives of the people. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
Mayor of Banjul, Rohey Lowe, was celebrated on Wednesday with a vibrant triple launch of a book, a magazine, and a documentary in recognition of her leadership, achievements, and service to the city. Yafatu Gay attended the launch. See now reports.
Today, my heart is full to see this room filled with such remarkable leaders, faithful friends, and brilliant minds. I am humble beyond words. This commemorative publication on my achievements tell part of my journey, but your presence make it a sheer celebration.
The event highlighted her historic role as the first female mayor of Banjul, and as well as her strong advocacy for women and children.
Banjulians, you elected a daughter, and you never stopped praying for her. Every street, every ward, and every neighborhood, you are the heartbeat of this journey.
The three celebratory items unveiled were the book, Woman of Substance and Barrier Breaker, the documentary, Grassroots Transformation, led by Mayor Rohey Lowe, and the magazine, Impactful Projects and International Partnerships. Together, they showcased the vision, struggles, achievements, and leadership journey of Mayor Lowe during her tenure at the Banjul City Council. The book was authored by Madi Cisse, the documentary produced and narrated by QTV's Ansumana Esonyasi, and the magazine compiled by Omar Ba. The works collectively reflect growing recognition of Gambian women leaders and document Mayor Lowe's contribution as Mayor of Banjul, President of Rafela, and women's rights advocate. Here is Madi Cisse, the author of the book.
The book has a very lengthy literature on the history of Banjul City Council. And I would recommend that the BCC should make these copies available to all the schools in Banjul and every Banjulian.
Speaking at the ceremony, the Deputy Mayor of Banjul, Abdul Aziz Dabah Gueye, and Mr. Modu Jonga, the CEO of Banjul City Council, commended the mayor for her visionary leadership and impact on development in the city.
These publications are more than a record. It is a testament to progress, resilience, and collective spirit of the city of Banjul.
She believed in women when society often asked them to wait. She believed in young people when many questioned their readiness. She believed in Banjul when others only saw its challenges.
Her Worship Abigail Marshall Khatun, Mayor Adam Massar of Kir Massar North in Senegal, and fundraiser Anjali Patif Mahadivia from the United States also praised Mayor Lowe, describing her as an exemplary leader in women's leadership and governance across the region and beyond.
She has mentored, she has trained, she has opened doors. One day she will leave the scene, but she will not leave you.
She has always been a voice for the underrepresented and creates pathways and platforms and opportunities for women to rise and lead.
Mayor Rohey Lowe is a lioness and a remarkable leader. She continues to do so much for the people of Banjul and the Gambia as a whole.
The special guest of honor, His Excellency Senator Doye Diri, the Executive Governor of Bayelsa State in Nigeria, emphasized the importance of women empowerment in national development, noting that inclusive leadership is key to progress.
Let this occasion that we have used to celebrate our Lord Mayor be more than a ceremony. Let it be a charge to every leader in this room and beyond.
The triple lunch stands as a fitting tribute to Mayor Rohey Lowe's journey and legacy. The delegation later gathered for a cultural celebration to mark the end of the event. Reporting for QTV News, this is Yafat Gay.
Speaking as a panel member during a summit in the Republic of Korea, the Gambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Gambians Abroad, Sering Modunjai, has called for stronger partnership between Africa and the Republic of Korea to drive sustainable development, industrialization and energy transformation across the continent. Aliu Sise reports.
The minister made these remarks while participating in the 2026 Korea-Africa Business Forum held in Seoul, South Korea, on the sidelines of the Korea-Africa Foreign Ministers meeting. Discussions focused on strengthening economic and strategic cooperation between Africa and Korea. Minister Njai served as a panelist during one of the sessions titled Critical Minerals and Energy Cooperation for Korea-Africa Shared Growth, which examined opportunities for collaboration in critical minerals and energy development as pathways to shared prosperity between Africa and Korea. Addressing participants, namely Salimo Ismail Vala, Minister of Planning and Development of Mozambique, Mohamed Ali Nafti, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Tunisians Abroad of Tunisia, and Olivier Jean Patrick Nduhungire, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Rwanda. He highlighted Africa's vast critical mineral resources and growing energy potentials, noting that these assets present significant opportunities for mutually beneficial partnerships. He emphasized that African countries are seeking partnerships beyond the traditional export of raw materials and instead promote industrialization, value addition, technology transfer, infrastructure development, and job creation. He outlined the Gambia's commitment to renewable energy development and improving access to electricity while creating an enabling environment for green investment and sustainable economic growth. The Korea-Africa Business Forum provided an important platform for strengthening dialogue between African nations and the Republic of Korea while exploring opportunities to advance sustainable economic cooperation and shared prosperity. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliu Sise.
We will now go for a commercial break. When we return, we have more national and international news stories and also sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, and this is QTV News. I am Umudu Gajaga, and here are the rest of tonight's news stories. Coming up next is international news. A permanent national memorial honoring the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis has been officially inaugurated in Paris by French President Emmanuel Macron and Rwandan President Paul Kagame. The monument was unveiled on Tuesday along the banks of River Seine during Kibuka 32, Rwanda's annual 100 days of mourning, marking another significant step in the reconciliation process between France and Rwanda. Adedarame watched the ceremony and he now reports.
The memorial before us is powerful because it sets the truth in stone and protects it from the heartlessness of time by instructing the living. It's not a validation because none is needed. But it will stand as a mark of respect for the dignity of Rwandans and our history.
That was Rwandan President Paul Kagame speaking in the heart of Paris on the Habib Bourguiba Esplanade overlooking the River Seine, as he and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron unveiled a permanent memorial dedicated to the more than 1 million victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Designed by renowned Portuguese artist Grada Quilomba, the monument, titled L'Archive, features 2 black brass monoliths mounted on a lava stone platform inspired by traditional Rwandan Imingongo designs. The project was launched jointly by the French state and the city of Paris with support from survivor organizations including Ibuka France, following years of advocacy for a permanent place of remembrance. Before President Kagame addressed the gathering, a brief performance of traditional Rwandan music brought a cultural dimension to the ceremony, highlighting the heritage and resilience of the Rwandan people.
To witness the inauguration of such a memorial in a place of honor in this city of Paris is anything but routine. I want to thank the city of Paris and its mayor, Emmanuel Gregoire, as well as the former mayor, Anne Hildegard.
President Kagame said the memorial would preserve historical truth and honor the dignity of Rwandans and their history. This inauguration comes as France and Rwanda continue efforts to strengthen ties after decades of difficult relations linked to the genocide.
I therefore would like to close by reiterating our appreciation and respect for President Macron's clarity and resolve. The work we are doing together will give future generations the tools to build and sustain the peace and understanding which we seek. That is the deeper significance of this moment. I thank you for your kind attention.
Mesdames et messieurs, j'invite maintenant à la tribune Monsieur le Président de la République.
French President Emmanuel Macron described the memorial as a milestone in reconciliation and part of a continuing search for truth regarding France's role during the events of 1994. Later, President Kagame and First Lady Jeannette Kagame attended a dinner at the Élysée Palace hosted by President Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron, concluding a day marked by remembrance, reflection and renewed partnership. For QTV News, I am Ade Darame.
Also in international news, French lawmakers have approved a bill to facilitate the return of artworks and artifacts looted in the colonial era. This is in response to requests from former French colonies, which also have been pushing for a repatriation of relics. Historians and museums, curators and in African countries have welcomed the news and assert that African nations have the capacity to care for their own artifacts. CGTN's Crystal Onyeko reports.
France still holds tens of thousands of artworks and other prized artifacts that it looted from its colonial empire. Back in 2017, French President Emmanuel Macron made a promise to return the cultural and religious items, and on several occasions has admitted to past French abuses in Africa. France's new bill is seen as a first step towards upholding that promise, but historians warn the legal process for return may not be smooth.
Before proceeding with the restitution of the works of art, the law requires first proving the illegality of these possessions. In other words, the origin of these objects must be proven in order to be returned. Now, colonial history is very complex. Most of these objects were acquired under conditions of economic and moral subjugation, domination, and so on. It will therefore be difficult to prove this.
African countries that have requested returns include Algeria, Senegal, Benin, Mali, and Côte d'Ivoire. Restitution advocates often argue that the return of artifacts and artworks should be accompanied by financial reparations to be invested in museums.
Before these objects ended up in the West, they were kept in Africa. To say today that Africans lack the infrastructure to house these objects is somewhat biased, as it ignores the reality on the ground. For example, I visited the Museum of Black Civilizations in Dakar, built by China, which is well equipped to receive such objects. There are also museums in Benin and Cameroon, and Ivory Coast has them as well. They simply need to be renovated and enhanced to be able to display these works of art. To say today those African countries cannot receive these artworks is to further diminish these African nations in their quest for sovereignty.
On top of legal hurdles, efforts to return looted items have long been slowed by resistance from institutions reluctant to let them go. The curator of the Museum of Black Civilizations in Senegal says France must prove that it is serious about restitution.
In this ultra-modern Museum of Black Civilizations of Senegal, the only item returned by France is the son of Elhadj Omar Fouriou Tall. This calls into question the genuineness of France's stated intention to return our artworks. The stolen objects included gold, manuscripts, musical instruments such as tablas, etc. Why 6 years after the inauguration of this ultra-modern museum have they only returned one object, this sand? All in all, this raises questions about the seriousness of the speeches made on the subject of restitution and what we actually see happening.
For the countries demanding the return of looted relics, France's intent can only be proven when artifacts are back in their countries of origin. Crystal Onyeko, CGTN.
And in sports news, Rwanda made basketball history over the past weekend. RSSB Tigers BBC defeated Angola's Petro de Luanda 90-88 to win the Basketball Africa League title, becoming the first Rwandan team ever to lift Africa's premier basketball trophy. Adedarame watched the action and he now tells us more.
The RSSB Tigers began the BAL 2026 playoff campaign in impressive fashion, defeating Morocco's FUS Rabat 95-72 in a match attended by President Paul Kagame. Led by standout performances from key players, the team carried that momentum all the way to the championship game. Thousands of fans packed Kigali's BK Arena for the final, where President Kagame was once again in attendance, and this time he was joined by First Lady Jeanette Kagame and members of their family, who were also joined by supporters to witness a thrilling contest between Rwanda's RSSB Tiger and Angola's Petro de Luanda. In a tense battle that went all the way down to the final moments, the Tigers held their nerve to secure a dramatic 90-88 victory. The triumph capped a remarkable debut season for our SSB Tigers in the Basketball Africa League. Since the competition was launched, every BAL final has been played in Rwanda, but for the first time, the trophy will remain on home soil. Head coach Henry Munuka guided the team to the title and was later named BAL Coach of the Year. The victory marks a major milestone for Rwandan basketball and strengthens the country's growing influence on the African sporting stage. For QTV News, I am Ade Darami.
And for football lovers, a reminder that the FIFA World Cup is only 1 week away, and from time to time, we shall be bringing you updates from Africa's 10 representatives. Now, before we end this news bulletin, here's a recap of our main news headlines. The National Assembly of the Gambia, under the leadership of its Speaker Fabakary Tombong Jatta, on Thursday held a media briefing on the second ordinary session of the 2026 legislative year at the National Assembly grounds in Banjul. The briefing outlined key legislative priorities, motions and policy matters expected to shape the Assembly's debates in the months ahead. The Mayor of Banjul, Rohey Lowe, was celebrated on Wednesday with a vibrant triple launch of a book, a magazine and a documentary in recognition of her leadership, achievements and service to the city. Speaking as a panel member during a summit in the Republic of Korea, the Gambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Serigne Modou Njie, has called for stronger partnership between Africa and the Republic of Korea to drive sustainable development and industrialization and energy transformation across the continent. And in international news, a permanent national memorial honoring the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis has been officially inaugurated in Paris by French President Emmanuel Macron and Rwandan President Paul Kagame. And in sports news, Rwanda made basketball history over the past weekend. RSSB Tigers BBC defeated Angola's Petro de Luanda 90-88 to win the Basketball Africa League title. That's all we have time for in this bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. Join us again at 10 for another news bulletin.